The house that waited. By the edge of Briarwood Forest, under branches heavy with moss and shadows, a house stood that no one remembered building. It did not decay, did not age, and it was never truly empty. What follows is the long and winding story of those it watched, those it welcomed, and those it kept. Part 1, Milo. Milo Granger was 12 the summer he disappeared. Eldridge Hollow was a quiet town, the kind where nothing happened loudly. The roads were cracked but kind, the gas station still sold gum for 20 cents, and every summer the kids played in the woods until the lightning bugs came out to light their way home. Milo was the kind of boy who never looked down when he walked. His eyes were always scanning the canopy, searching for bird nests, cloud shapes, or gaps in the treetops where the sunlight pooled. On June 18, 1993, he wandered too far from the neighborhood while chasing fireflies with an old mason jar. "Come on, just a few more minutes," he whispered to himself, swinging the jar to trap the flickering light. His sneakers squelched in the soft dirt of a deer trail as the trees began to change around him. He didn't notice right away. The leaves above darkened slightly, the branches thickened, and the air grew cool like water over stone. When he looked up again, the sky had dimmed to the smoky hue of late dusk, and the path behind him was gone. He muttered. He turned slowly, puzzled. No fear yet, just curiosity. Milo wasn't the sort to spook easily. Then he saw it, a clearing up ahead, rimmed with birches too symmetrical to be natural. In the middle stood a house. Pale gray siding. Dark green shutters. A porch swing that swayed gently, though the air was still. One yellow light glowed from a second-story window. "Is someone home?" he called out. His voice didn't echo, it was swallowed. The air smelled like cedar and something faintly sweet, cinnamon, maybe. He stepped closer. The door stood ajar. Not wide open. Not shut. Just enough to suggest it had been left for him. Milo hesitated. Then, cree-eek. The porch swing tilted slightly, as though someone had just stood up from it. Milo backed up. "Hello? Is somebody there?" No answer. Still, something like warmth radiated from the house. The way a home feels in winter, even before you open the door. He took one cautious step up the wooden stairs, which didn't creak. Another. Then across the porch, and finally to the door. Inside, the air was still. But it wasn't musty. It was lived in. There was a fire in the hearth. A small wooden table beside the window, with a mug of cocoa steaming gently. 3 marshmallows floated in it. Just how he liked it. "Okay," Milo said slowly. "This is weird." He turned to leave. And found that the door was gone. Not closed. Gone. Behind him was only wall. Smooth wood, no seams, no hinges. He stared for several long seconds, heart beginning to beat like a slow drum. "Hello?" he said again, louder. A soft footstep sounded above. He looked up toward the staircase that curled around the corner of the foyer. Tap. Tap. Light footsteps. Like a child's. Milo took a step back. Then another. Then a voice, soft and strange, said, "Don't be scared. You're home now." Part 2, The Search. Clara Granger didn't scream when Milo didn't come home that night. She didn't panic. She just stood at the back door, arms crossed, one slippered foot tapping against the cracked tile, waiting for the familiar sound of the screen door slamming and his voice calling out, "Sorry, sorry, I lost track of time." It never came. The first hour passed quietly. Then the second. Then night rolled over the town like a velvet curtain. The lightning bugs blinked out. The wind stilled. And Clara stepped outside, flashlight in hand, calling his name. "Milo." "Dinner time," sweetheart. Let's go. No answer. Not even the hoot of an owl. She went next door to the Wheelers. Have you seen Milo? He went out with the jar again. He said just a few minutes. Mrs. Wheeler shook her head. Didn't see him, hon. Want Ed to walk the edge of the woods with you? They searched until midnight. Ed Wheeler walked the creek with his old hunting light while Clara clutched Milo's red hoodie in both hands, pressing it to her face when the tears came. The next morning, Eldridge Hollow came alive in a quiet but urgent way. Men in reflective vests combed the forest with sticks and walkie-talkies. Dogs barked at nothing. Police cars lined the main road. Kids were kept indoors. Sheriff Lydia Munn, a stoic woman with a wide jaw and calloused hands, led the effort. We'll find him, Clara, she said, not meeting her eyes. This forest's turned around worse than Milo and spit them back out just fine. But the woods aren't that big, Clara said hollowly. They shouldn't be able to keep anyone this long. Sheriff Munn paused. You'd be surprised how much forest there really is once you stop walking in a straight line. But Clara wasn't convinced. She grew up in Eldridge Hollow. She knew Briarwood Forest like the back of her hand. And something felt wrong. Too quiet. Too still. The woods weren't just holding Milo. They were hiding him. 5 days passed. The dogs found nothing. The scent trails went cold within 20 feet of the edge of the trees, just stopped. Volunteers reported seeing strange things. One teenager, Charlie Mertz, swore he saw a boy's face watching him from behind a tree. Pale. Expressionless. Then gone. They think I made it up, Charlie told Clara. But I swear, his eyes were wrong. Too big. Too bright. He looked like Milo, but not. After 10 days, the official search wound down. Not because anyone gave up, but because the forest had stopped cooperating. Maps failed. Compass needles spun. One search party got turned around so many times, they emerged nearly a mile south of where they'd entered, shaking and covered in briar scratches. Clara refused to stop. She quit her job at the diner. Sold her car. Bought hiking boots and a high-powered flashlight. She went out every day. Alone. In time, people stopped asking about her. The town was too polite to call her crazy, but they knew grief when they saw it. A year passed. Then 2. And still, every day, Clara walked the forest. She heard whispers sometimes. Low voices calling her name. Sometimes they sounded like Milo. Sometimes they didn't. She never found the house. Not yet. But it found her. It began with the dreams. Soft ones, at first. A porch swing. The smell of cinnamon. Then clearer, Milo's voice, whispering. Come inside, Mom. It's warm. She'd wake up crying. One morning, she woke with a splinter in her hand. A porch splinter. The kind stained with old paint and time. She hadn't left the house in days. Then came the tea. One morning, she came downstairs to find a cup waiting for her on the kitchen table. Steam rose from it. Chamomile. Her favorite. 3 spoonfuls of honey. Just how she liked it. She lived alone. Her knees shook as she sat down, staring at the cup. Her hand trembled as she picked it up, fingers brushing the handle. Still warm. And outside, through the kitchen window, the woods looked closer than they ever had before. Almost as if they were leaning in. Almost as if they were listening. And somewhere deep inside them, a house stirred. A swing creaked. And a voice, very faint, said, "She's almost ready." Part 3, The House Remembers. The house had no eyes, but it watched. It had no mouth, but it whispered. It had no hands, but it reached. In the deep soil beneath its foundation, older things pulsed and remembered, roots that weren't roots, veins that carried something thicker than sap. The house was never truly built. It had grown. It liked to be wanted. It liked when people called to it without knowing. When they dreamed of rooms they'd never seen, when they craved comfort with nowhere left to go. It heard Milo the moment his foot broke the forest line. It felt the hum of his heartbeat, quick and bright. It listened to the joy in his voice as he whispered to the fireflies. It felt the boy's unformed sorrow, the future loneliness already growing inside him like a curled leaf. And it wanted him. So it made itself known. A clearing. A swing. A door left just so. When he crossed the threshold, the house drank in his presence. The fire lit without smoke. The cocoa heated itself. It watched as he touched the banister. Listened as he whispered his confusion. It mimicked the voices it had stored, a soft maternal hum, an older brother's laugh, a teacher's encouragement. But the house made a mistake. It underestimated the boy's memory. Milo remembered his mother's voice too well. He didn't run, not then. But he turned away from the stairs. He walked the length of the parlor. He tapped the walls, looking for seams. He called out, "You're not real." The house stiffened. A silence pressed in. Somewhere above, a door creaked open. Not all the house was gentle. Some rooms should not be entered. Some things inside did not speak. Still, it had time. And now it had Milo. It had known others. The soldier from 1918, broken in body and mind, who stumbled from a battlefield dream into a snowless winter. The girl in 1956 who followed a white cat between the trees and never saw her mother again. The old woman who came willingly, cradling a box of ashes, whispering, "Just a little longer." Some stayed willingly. Some tried to leave. The house did not punish. It simply waited. Its doors did not open both ways. It didn't crave pain. Only presence. Only memory. Only souls to fill the rooms. Clara's dreams called louder than most. Her grief was pure. Her need complete. She would come. The house hummed with anticipation. A table set itself, 2 chairs, mother and son. A fire flared to life. The swing began to move. Soon. Very soon. And in the attic, Milo stared out a window that showed only forest, and said softly, "She's coming." He did not sound happy. Not entirely. The house heard. And smiled, in its way. It would make them a family again. Forever. Part 4, Clara Returns. It began with a silence. On the morning of June 18th, 7 years after Milo vanished, Clara woke to a world too still. The birds that normally sang through her kitchen window were absent. Her old clock had stopped ticking at 3:17 a.m. The tea kettle, which had been shrieking moments before, was now silent on a burner that glowed with no heat. The woods were waiting. She knew it before she stepped outside. Knew it before her bare feet touched the dewy grass. She wasn't wearing shoes. Wasn't wearing her coat. She didn't pack water or call anyone. She simply walked. The forest opened to her like a sigh. Each step forward was easier than the last. The path, which had once choked and tangled her, now slipped aside as if drawn by invisible hands. The trees no longer hid her, they guided. "Clara," a voice murmured. She didn't startle. She knew the voice. "Milo," she called, her own voice hoarse. "Almost," it said. Then again, from deeper in the trees, "Almost." Her steps quickened. Roots bent away. Leaves brushed her shoulders with gentle touch. The air had a scent she hadn't smelled in years, cocoa and wood smoke, laced with something older. Then she saw it. The clearing. The house. Just as it had appeared in her dreams. Porch swing swaying. Light glowing in the second-story window. Clara didn't pause. She didn't knock. The door opened before she reached it. Inside was warmth. Not just heat, but the ache of remembered comfort. The scent of cinnamon lingered on the air. On the table, a cup of tea. 3 spoonfuls of honey. Just how she liked it. "Welcome home," said a voice from the stairwell. She turned. And there he stood. Milo. Older now. 14, maybe 15. Taller. Pale. His eyes shimmered with a strange light, as if backlit by candle flame. But his smile, that was the same. Clara rushed forward, arms outstretched, sob catching in her throat. But just before they touched, he stepped back. "Wait," he said gently. "You can't. Not yet." She froze, arms half raised. "What?" "Milo, it's me. I found you." "You did," he said. "But you can't stay. Not the way I did." The house sighed around them. The walls pulsed faintly, as though breathing. "You don't understand," Clara said. "I've looked for you every day. I dreamed of this. I know. I never stopped. Never gave up." "I know," Milo said again. His voice was softer now. Pained. "But this place, it's not what it seems." Behind him, a door creaked open. Light spilled from it, not yellow, not warm. A silver glow, flickering like something underwater. "It wants you," Milo said. "It wants us both. But it's not a home. It's a memory trap. A dream that never ends. You can still leave. Come with me," she pleaded. "I can't." Clara moved forward anyway. The house shifted. Walls expanded. Doors multiplied. The hallway behind her twisted slightly, becoming longer, narrower. She reached out, fingers brushing his. For a moment, just a second, they touched. A jolt ran through them both. Milo's face twisted, not in pain, but in sudden clarity. "Run," he said. The lights above flared. The floorboards groaned. "Run." Clara turned, and the house did not stop her. Not yet. But the way back was longer now. The front door, which had been 10 feet away, was now a hallway. Then a stairwell. Then another. The house was thinking. Clara ran. She followed the scent of pine and smoke, the flicker of true light through distorted windows. Her breath came fast. Her limbs shook. Her heart ached. Then, a door. Slightly ajar. She pushed through it. And the forest was there. The sun was rising. Birds were singing again. Clara fell to her knees in the grass. Behind her, the clearing was empty. No house. No swing. No boy. Only trees. And somewhere, very far off, a voice whispered. Almost. Part 5, Threshold. The next morning, Clara sat on her porch, wrapped in the old patchwork quilt Milo used to drag around like a cape. She hadn't slept. The light breeze ruffled the steam off her untouched tea. The clock still read 3:17 a.m., though the sun had long since risen. She had escaped the house. But something had followed her. In her dreams, Milo stood at the edge of the clearing, never speaking again, his lips moving silently in reversed whispers. The swing behind him turned slower now, as if wound by a dying hand. The world felt thinner. She noticed things she hadn't before, shadows cast in the wrong direction, reflections in windows that lingered too long, the static hush on every phone call, no matter the line. And always, the soft feeling that something was standing just behind her. She tried to tell herself it was trauma. That what she saw was a hallucination born from grief and exhaustion. But every fiber of her being screamed otherwise. She had touched Milo. He had been real. And she had brought a piece of the house with her. At night, her dreams bled. She walked endless staircases. Heard knocks from under the floorboards. Found mirrors in her closet that shouldn't have been there. One night, she woke to find her bedroom door open. It had been locked. On her pillow, a single silver thread, long and glistening. She burned it in the sink. But it came back the next night. Clara began to investigate. Old town records. Folk tales. Forgotten newspaper archives. The deeper she dug, the more she realized Briarwood had always had disappearances. But no one connected them. No patterns were followed. Just names, spread across decades, children, travelers, widows, soldiers. The house was not new. And it was not stationary. It moved. She found a report from 1932 about a house seen in Ash Hollow, vanishing overnight. A journal from a trapper in 1841 describing a dream home in the woods. Always slightly different. Always familiar to whoever entered it. It became what they needed. What they longed for. On a fog-heavy dawn, Clara returned to the woods. Not because she was called, but because she chose. This time, she brought things with her, a compass, a camera, a small wooden carving of Milo she'd made during the long years of his absence, and a vial of her own blood. She entered with no welcome. No voice called her name. No trees parted. She walked for hours. But she did not turn back. She whispered into the trees, into the silence, "You took him. Let me trade." And still, silence. Until nightfall. Then, just at the edge of her sight, the swing moved. A light blinked once. The house had not forgotten her. And this time, it was listening. Part 6, The Trade. The house did not open its door this time. It waited. Clara stood at the edge of the clearing, wind combing her hair with invisible fingers. The house flickered at the corners, like a memory being remembered wrong. Its paint was a different shade now, pale blue, not the comforting yellow from before. A cup of tea waited on the porch, already steaming. She did not drink it. "I'm not here for comfort," she said aloud. The wind stilled. A window on the second floor blinked to black, then light again. She stepped forward. This time the porch creaked like breath held too long. The doorknob was cold beneath her fingers. The door opened without resistance, revealing the same front hall, but the wallpaper had changed. Photographs lined the walls now. Clara's breath caught. They were pictures of her. Of Milo. Some she recognized from old albums. Others she had never seen. Ones that couldn't exist. Milo at 10, asleep beneath a tree. Milo at 12, smiling with a carved wooden bird in his hands. Milo last year, taller, haunted, looking directly into the lens. "I brought something," she said to the air. Her voice trembled. She drew the vial of blood from her coat pocket. "You want pieces? Take mine." The house groaned softly, beams shivering. "Let him go," she whispered. Silence. Then, the lights overhead blinked. 1, 2, 3. A door opened upstairs. Clara moved. Her boots echoed as she climbed. Each stair felt steeper than it should have. Gravity thickened around her. The hallway stretched too long. Shadows leaned. Then, a room with no number. Just a handle. Wooden. Warm. She opened it. Inside, a boy sat on the floor, legs crossed. Older. Thinner. His eyes were dimmer than they should be, but when he looked up, they cleared. "Mom," he said. She rushed forward, dropping to her knees. "Milo." This time, he didn't flinch. Their hands met. Warm. Real. He was real. "I can't leave," he said, voice barely audible. "Not yet." "You can," she said fiercely. "We both can. The house wants to keep me." She pulled the carving from her coat. "Then I leave it something else." Behind her, the door thudded shut. The room trembled. A low sound, not angry, not pleased. Just old. Thinking. Clara placed the carving in the center of the room. Then the vial of blood. "You want memory? Have mine. You want grief? Have it. But you don't get him anymore." Milo clutched her hand. "Will it work?" "I don't know." The light dimmed. The house exhaled. And then, a shift, sudden, like the popping of ears at altitude. The floor smoothed. The walls quieted. The door opened again. On the other side, forest. Morning. Birds. Milo stared at it. Then at Clara. "Go," she said. "I'll follow." He stepped through. She turned back once. The carving sat exactly where she left it. But now, it smiled. She stepped forward. The door closed behind them. And the clearing was empty once more. Part 7, The New Resident. The house sat still for some time. It did not groan. It did not breathe. The wind shifted through the clearing, untended and unshaped. The swing hung motionless. The windows blank. But inside, in that room with no number, the wooden carving remained. Where once it had been a token of grief, it was now something more. The smile carved into its face deepened, subtly, with each passing hour. By dusk, it had stood up. Its wooden feet made no sound against the floorboards as it wandered the house. Curious. Delighted. Learning. The house watched. It had given something up, but not for nothing. Clara had bargained well. The blood, the sorrow, the memory, they had weight. They had shape. And from them, the house shaped Hollow. That was its name now. The wooden boy with no voice, no past. Only purpose. Hollow wandered the halls, dragging fingers along the walls that pulsed faintly at his touch. He stood in mirrors too long. He blinked out of sync. He hummed songs no one had taught him. And the house responded. It shifted its rooms to match his moods. It dimmed its lights when he wanted sleep. It opened doors that led to nowhere, just to see if he'd step through. He always did. Outside, decades passed. Stories were told of a house that walked in dreams. Of children who vanished chasing wooden dolls through the trees. Of voices that echoed in lakes where no houses stood. A hiker once found the clearing, years later. The house stood bright and cheery. Blue and white. Smoke curling from its chimney. The hiker knocked once, then again. The door creaked open. A boy greeted him. Pale as birch bark, eyes like burnt knots. Silent. Hollow. The man never came back. And the house waited, again, for someone worth watching. Part 8, The Woods Whisper. People forgot the path, but the forest didn't. The trees remembered footsteps, the crunch of sneakers, the soft press of boots, the way some feet trembled as they passed. And the wind, sharp and constant, carried stories. Stories of the house. Children began to dream of Hollow. They whispered his name in sleep. In a small town beyond Briarwood, a girl named Lily woke crying, saying she'd seen a boy with bark for skin offer her a lollipop made of bone. Her parents blamed television. Others didn't wake up at all. In the woods, Hollow stood among branches and birdsong, still as a statue, waiting just off the trail. Always smiling. Always patient. He never chased. He simply was. And when the lost found him, he brought them to the house. One such lost was Jonah Blackwell, 12, wide-eyed, always drawing. He wandered too far from his school field trip, his sketchbook open, trying to capture a raven on a branch. He followed the sound of humming. A tune he didn't recognize, but couldn't forget. The clearing unfolded before him like a curtain parting. Jonah stepped inside. The house was red today. Trimmed in ivy, smoke puffing gently. He knocked. The door opened. Hollow smiled, tilted his head, then stepped aside. Jonah hesitated. Then entered. He stayed for days. He never ate. Never drank. But he sketched. The house gave him paper. Charcoal. Ink. He drew staircases that turned into rivers. Rooms full of spinning clocks. A hallway made of hands. He didn't ask to leave. He didn't remember why he'd come. And Hollow watched, humming that same endless tune. Outside, the town began to whisper. Jonah was the 5th child that season. All vanished near Briarwood. An old woman, Eleanor Green, swore she had seen a boy made of wood standing by her pond at night. When she screamed, he disappeared. Her neighbors said she was senile. But that night, every mirror in her house cracked down the center. And in the morning, her bed was full of leaves. The woods whispered. And the house waited. Part 9, Rootbound. Jonah was not the only one who left behind sketches. Weeks after his disappearance, his parents found his sketchbook on their doorstep. Wrapped in vines. Damp, but intact. Every page filled. None they recognized. They flipped through staircases made of teeth, portraits with eyes scratched out, forests that looked too much like Briarwood. On the final page, a drawing of Jonah himself, but older, thinner, with eyes like hollows in wood. Beside him stood a boy with a carved grin and no shadow. The authorities dismissed it as a prank. But Jonah's mother, Leanne, knew. She took the sketchbook and went to the forest. She was never seen again. The forest had grown thicker. It moved. Branches arched in unnatural shapes, forming tunnels. Moss covered paths that once led out. The wind hissed warnings in a dozen voices, but only those who had dreamt of Hollow could understand them. One girl, Maribel, brought salt in her pockets and iron around her neck. Her grandmother had whispered old stories, handed down from days before the town had roads. She thought she knew how to find the truth. She did. She walked the paths backward. She held her breath when the shadows reached for her. She reached the clearing. The house was black this time. Its windows empty. She didn't knock. She whispered, "I brought you a name." The door opened on its own. Inside, Hollow waited, hands clasped, smiling. Maribel did not smile back. "I know what you are," she said. "And I know what you need." The house creaked. Maribel took out a bell. Small. Iron. She rang it once. The walls groaned. A low sound, like wood cracking deep underground. Hollow tilted his head. Blinked. The house shifted. Not in rejection, but recognition. Maribel stepped forward. "You were born from a trade. A story sealed with grief. But roots need pruning. You've grown wrong." The lights dimmed. Shadows twisted. Then, laughter. Not from Hollow. From the house itself. Low. Pleased. It liked her. The door shut behind her. Outside, the forest sighed. And new vines crept out from the earth, curling across the edge of town. Part 10, The Bargain Strikes Back. Maribel did not scream. Even when the door sealed behind her, even as the house began to pulse with warmth not its own, the warmth of curiosity, of interest, she stood her ground. "You've been too long without rules," she said, her voice steadier than her breath. The lights above her flickered in patterns. Morse code, though she didn't know how to read it. Still, she felt it wasn't a threat. Hollow approached, slow, tilting his head with the same carved smile he always wore. Maribel held up the bell. "I can unmake you," she said softly. "But I don't want to." He stopped. "You weren't born bad. You were born, unfinished." The shadows shifted. One peeled from the wall and took shape. A tall silhouette, no eyes, no face, but watching. The house. It spoke in her head, a voice like wind dragging over stone. "We remember the trade." Maribel nodded. "Then remember this, trades can be renegotiated." She placed a small stone on the ground. Smooth, white, carved with an old rune. "My grandmother said it was from before your time." A key, she called it. A promise. The house fell silent. Hollow blinked, once. Then turned toward the stone. It pulsed. And so did he. Something inside the house cried out. Not a voice. Not pain. Something older. Something opening. The town noticed the change. The vines that had crept to its edge retreated. Mirrors stopped cracking. People stopped dreaming of Hollow, though they still remembered him. Children stopped disappearing. Maribel walked out of the forest one foggy morning, barefoot, hair full of twigs, eyes wide. But she was smiling. "I didn't kill it," she said to no one in particular. "I taught it." When asked where she had been, she would only say, "There's a library in the house now." Inside the house, Hollow sat reading. By candlelight, in a room that hadn't existed until Maribel stepped through the door. He still smiled. But sometimes he frowned now, too. Sometimes he laughed. Once, he cried. The house held him gently. And the forest listened. Part 11, The Bone Maiden's Path. Long before Maribel, before Hollow, before Clara, the house had another guest. She never left. Not truly. Her name was never written down, but she came to be known in whispers and wind-blown stories as the Bone Maiden. They say she entered the house with nothing but a cloak of crow feathers and a necklace of teeth. That she walked the forest not in fear, but in command. One evening, Maribel returned to the house, years after her first visit. She was older now, quieter. The world had pulled her forward, but something still called her back. Hollow welcomed her. He looked the same, or almost. There was softness now. Stillness. He no longer hunted dreams. "I've been having visions," she told him. "Of a woman made of bone and shadow. Of a path beneath the house." Hollow nodded slowly. "She's still here." They descended into a cellar neither had seen before. The walls breathed. The air was cold. Lit only by Hollow's candle, the stones underfoot bore strange marks, not carved, but grown. As though the house itself had been shaped around her long ago. "She came here before memory," Hollow said. "She gave her name to the roots." At the end of the path was a door. Bone white. Covered in symbols. Maribel reached for it. It opened before she touched it. Inside, a small room, walls of ivory, floor of ash. And at the center, a throne grown from twisted antlers. On it sat a woman, tall and still, wrapped in silence. Her face was masked with bone, but her eyes shone like glass. "Daughter of salt," she said. Her voice was like falling snow. Maribel knelt. She did not know why. It simply felt right. "I dreamed of you. You heard me. Few do." The Bone Maiden rose. The antlers creaked behind her. Her bare feet made no sound. "You woke the house," she said. "You rewrote the trade. That is not without consequence. I only wanted to help. Then help again." She raised a hand. In it formed a knife made of memory. Shimmering, silver-edged, its hilt wrapped in hair. "There are other houses," she said. "Other bargains. Some worse." The room shook slightly. Dust fell like snowfall from the ceiling. "You must walk the path. You must become more." Maribel took the knife. And when she did, the door vanished behind her. The forest shifted. The Bone Maiden smiled. "Let's begin." Part 12, The Echo Cities. When Maribel stepped through the ivory doorway, she did not enter a room, but a world beneath the world. She stood on a bridge of glass, suspended in nothing. Below her, stars pulsed in water that was not water. Around her, ruins loomed, towers of bone and smoke, stitched together by tendrils of memory. "This is the first city," the Bone Maiden whispered. She did not walk beside Maribel. She simply appeared, wherever Maribel looked. It was not built. It was remembered. They moved through the echo of streets long silent. Beneath their feet, the ground hummed with stories too old for language. Faces flickered in windows that no longer held rooms. Bells rang in the distance, but there were no hands to ring them. Maribel clutched the memory knife. "Why am I here?" "Because the house is not alone. This is what was buried when the bargains began. The first price, the first hunger." In the city square, they found a fountain of teeth. Children danced around it, not of flesh, but of ash and wind. They sang in backwards tongues. Maribel watched. "They dreamt too deep," the Bone Maiden said. "Now they live here." Maribel stepped into the fountain. The water hissed and boiled. The children screamed, but not in fear. In delight. She saw their dreams. A woman made of windows. A door that weeps. A train with no destination, only doors. Maribel turned to the Bone Maiden. "How many echo cities are there?" 13. "How many must I walk?" "All. If you are to become what comes next." She took a deep breath. The wind of the city changed. And a staircase unfurled from the sky, woven from black feathers. Maribel ascended. The children bowed. The Bone Maiden watched and smiled with a mouth not her own. Part 13, The Door That Bleeds. The second Echo City was colder. Not in temperature, but in memory. As Maribel stepped from the feather staircase onto a crimson plain, the sky wept rusted rain, and the ground beneath her feet was stitched leather, groaning as she moved. The Bone Maiden did not appear this time. Instead, a door stood alone in the vastness. It bled from its hinges, slow and steady, a thick black ichor that evaporated before it touched the ground. The door pulsed, like a heart remembering a beat long lost. Maribel approached. Her boots soaked in the ichor with each step. She didn't flinch. She was learning. On the door was etched a word she could not read. But the memory knife in her hand warmed. She pressed the knife to the door. A sound rang out, like 1,000 locks turning at once. The bleeding stopped. The door opened. Inside, a house. But not the house. This one was twisted, long and narrow, every hallway bending back into itself. Paintings lined the walls. Portraits of those she'd met, Milo, Clara, Hollow, even herself. They watched her as she moved. The house whispered to her. Every door you open costs you. She walked. The halls led her to a dining room where the table was set with masks instead of plates. At the head sat a woman with her back turned, long black hair spilling over a red velvet gown. She did not turn. You've come far, the woman said. Farther still to go, Maribel replied. You carry a knife made of truth. But here, truth is devoured. The woman turned. She had no face. Where eyes should be, keys. Where a mouth should be, a lock. Take a mask, she said. Or leave nothing behind. Maribel stepped forward. She chose the plainest mask, white bone, no markings. As she lifted it, the knife in her hand trembled. She put it on. She remembered her mother's voice. She remembered Clara screaming. She remembered Hollow's first breath. When she removed the mask, the faceless woman was gone. So was the table. So was the house. She stood again before the bleeding door. This time, it wept salt. She bowed to it. It closed behind her. And a new path opened. Stone stairs carved from vertebrae. The third city waited. Part 14, The Lantern That Sings. The third Echo City did not appear at first. Maribel walked the vertebrae stairs for what felt like hours, until the sound of humming began, faint, tuneless, and distant. The stairs ended in mist. And then, like a curtain parting, the city emerged. Suspended in darkness, it floated, buildings carved from lanterns of skin and glass, swaying gently in windless air. Bridges of bone connected the structures like spider silk. Everything pulsed with a soft orange glow. And in the center of the city was a song. It was not sung with words, but with memory. Maribel felt it in her bones, lullabies from childhood, her father's voice reading by candlelight, the wind outside a bedroom window long lost to time. She stepped onto a bridge. It didn't sway, though it looked impossibly fragile. Below, the void sparkled with what might have been stars, or eyes. From every lantern house, figures emerged. They were not hostile. Not quite. They carried no weapons. Only light. One approached her, holding a lantern carved from a jawbone. Inside it flickered a tiny flame that whispered her name. You've carried silence, the figure said. Its voice echoed like a choir through a cave. I've carried much more, Maribel replied. The figure tilted its head. Then let us test what echoes remain. Sing. Maribel did not know what to sing. So she hummed the tune her mother once used to calm storms in her chest. As she did, the lanterns around her changed color, soft violet, then green, then blue. The bridge below her glowed brighter. The figure bowed. You remember. That is enough. The song intensified. The city trembled. The tallest lantern cracked open, revealing a staircase of woven reeds and knotted hair. Maribel climbed without asking. At the top, a room of silence. And at its center, a lantern, larger than the rest, suspended in nothing, its flame dim but steady. She reached toward it. The memory knife shimmered. It split into threads of silver and wove itself into the lantern's frame. Light burst outward. Maribel saw everything. Clara staring at her own reflection, unable to blink. Hollow, standing before the real house, hands outstretched to a world that didn't understand him. The Bone Maiden, seated again on her throne of antlers, watching. And the house, the true house, its roof now crowned with branches. The lantern whispered. 3 cities walked. 10 remain. The city folded like paper. Maribel fell. And woke. At the edge of a river made of ink. Part 15, the river without reflection. The river ran silent. Its ink surface held no reflection, only shifting words, like silver fish swimming just beneath. Maribel crouched at its edge and dipped her fingers in. Immediately, the voices began. You let her fall. He would have stayed if you asked. The house never wanted you. Each voice took a tone from her past. A friend. A parent. Herself. She stood quickly and wiped the ink from her skin. But the stains remained, curling up her wrist like vines. Across the river, a single figure rowed a skiff carved from bones and spiderwebs. Its oars made no splash. The boat glided toward her, and when it arrived, the figure lifted its hood. It was Maribel. Or rather, a version of her. Older, eyes clouded, smile tired. You've come far, said the other Maribel. But not far enough. I'm not here for riddles. Then you'll drown. The boat rocked as Maribel climbed in. No words were spoken as they floated into the river's heart. Around them, the city disappeared. There was only ink. And whispering. Do you regret it? The older Maribel finally asked. Regret what? Clara. Hollow. Yourself. The younger Maribel stared at the shifting surface. Images rose like oil, Clara bleeding beside the house, Hollow screaming into the trees, Maribel herself burning the memory of a child she once promised to protect. I don't regret surviving, she said. The older Maribel nodded. Then fell into the water. No splash. Just silence. Maribel reached out, but the boat did not stop. The river's current thickened. Ahead, a shore. Carved from teeth. Trees made of shadow. Sky, a bruise. The boat struck land, and Maribel stepped out. Alone again. Waiting at the tree-line, a door made of mirrors. And behind it, laughter. She stepped forward. Part 16, The Mirrored Wood. The mirror door shimmered in a breeze that didn't move the trees. Maribel hesitated. The laughter had stopped, replaced by the sound of weeping. She stepped through. On the other side, she found a forest identical to the one she'd left, except all the trees bore mirrored bark. No reflection stayed the same. Each showed her face distorted, too young, too old, scarred, smiling, empty-eyed. She walked cautiously, the ground whispering her name in leaf crackles and twig snaps. A child darted between two trees. Maribel froze. Hello? The child didn't answer. It wore a mask of Maribel's own face, carved in wood and painted with blood. She followed it. The forest deepened, trees growing taller, their mirrored bark fogging with breath that wasn't hers. Each time she looked, her reflection acted differently, waving, weeping, running in the opposite direction. Eventually, she entered a clearing. In the center stood a version of the house. Its architecture bled into the forest around it, porch railings grown from bone branches, shutters that blinked. The child waited at the door. You're not me, Maribel said. No, the child replied, removing the mask. Beneath it, Hollow's face. You're dead. Not here, Hollow said. The door to the mirrored house creaked open. Within, scenes of her past flickered like candlelight. Clara's hand pulling hers away from a cliff. The bone maiden weeping in solitude. The real house, whispering dreams to itself. Maribel turned to Hollow. Why show me this? Because the next city won't remember you unless you remember yourself. Behind him, a staircase descended into a root cellar of mirrors, each step warping beneath her feet. Maribel entered the mirrored house. And began the descent. Part 17, The House That Dreamed Itself. The staircase groaned beneath Maribel's boots as she descended. With each step, her breath fogged the mirrored walls. Not her reflection, but others. Clara, Milo, Hollow. The Bone Maiden. The house. Each stared back, not with judgment, but longing. The final step crumbled as she reached the bottom, and she fell forward, into a dream. It was not sleep. It was story. The house stood before her, new and incomplete. No moss, no shadow. A skeleton of rafters and nails, dreaming itself into being. A child sat in the corner, whispering blueprints to the floorboards. It turned, revealing Clara's eyes and Milo's crooked smile. "Who are you?" Maribel asked. "I'm what the house forgot," it said. "And what you buried." Around her, the walls grew flesh. Windows blinked open like eyes. Doors sighed as if breathing. The house dreamed. Of guests, of pain, of Clara's blood and Milo's laughter. It remembered each footstep. Each whisper. "You fed it," the child said. "With grief. With guilt. With memory." Maribel stepped deeper. Rooms formed around her. Familiar. The kitchen where Milo laughed. The parlor where Clara screamed. A nursery that had never known peace. She opened the attic door. Inside, her mother sat in a rocking chair. Not dead. Not alive. Dreamed. "Why?" Maribel whispered. "Because I never left you," her mother replied. "The house kept me. And it will keep you too." Maribel knelt. "I don't want to be kept." The house trembled. Rafters bowed. It heard her. A mirror formed on the attic wall. Cracked. Black. "If you walk through, you'll wake the house," said her mother. "It will stop dreaming. And everything it remembers will be forgotten." Maribel reached for the mirror. "Then let it forget me too." She stepped through. The house screamed. And began to vanish. Part 18, The Forgotten Door. Maribel fell through the mirror into darkness, not emptiness, but something hushed, like the breath before speech. When she landed, it was not on earth or floorboards, but soft dust that sighed beneath her weight. Ahead, a hallway stretched on. It was lined with doors, each warped as though softened by time and thought. They had no handles. She approached the nearest one. Carved into the wood was her name, except it was written in Clara's handwriting. When she touched it, the door pulsed with warmth. From behind it came a sound, not a voice, but pages turning. She moved on. The next door bore no name. Just a symbol, the house's silhouette. And the next, the Bone Maiden's face, crying blood that formed the hinges. But it was the final door, at the very end, that stopped her breath. It was utterly plain. Gray. Featureless. Forgotten. And it was open a crack. Maribel pushed. The room inside was blank. A sky without stars. A forest without trees. A space waiting to be remembered. And in the center, a figure sat on the floor. It was herself. But not from memory or dream, this version was raw, flickering with every possibility of who she might have become. "You made it," said the other Maribel. "I think I'm done," said the real one. "You're not," the reflection replied. "You're the last echo. You have to choose what the house becomes." "Why me?" "Because you made it dream. You made it remember. And now you can set it free." Maribel sat. She held the other's hand. They breathed together. The house stirred. All its rooms, its histories, its sorrow and rage, folded in on themselves. Then, a door opened. A real door. Back in the forest. On the edge of dawn. Maribel stepped through. And the house, that ancient, dreaming place, collapsed into a single, silent memory. Part 19, when the forest sleeps. Morning light poured through the trees like gold sifted through silence. Where the house once stood, moss now blanketed a flat circle of earth, too perfect, too still. Maribel stepped through the final door and emerged barefoot. The forest knew her again. Branches lifted. The hush breathed. Behind her, the house was gone. Not ruined. Not vanished. Remembered. She looked down at her palms. In one hand, she held a sliver of wood, warm to the touch, like it still dreamed. The path back to town was overgrown. Vines whispered along her ankles, slowing her, asking her to stay. But she walked on. At the edge of the forest, she met Clara. Older. Weary. Waiting. "You came back," Clara said. "I found it," Maribel replied. "And I let it go." They sat together for a long time. No words. Just the hum of the waking forest. Then Clara asked, "Did it hurt?" "All dreams do," Maribel answered. The sun rose higher, burning away the mists. In the silence, something shifted. A bird sang. A branch fell. Life moved forward. The forest slept now, not in forgetfulness, but in peace. And beneath its roots, the house waited once more. Not for revenge. Not for sorrow. But for the next dreamer brave enough to knock.